Hello and welcome to the Checkpoint. I'm Louis Mendy, your presenter. On the Checkpoint tonight, the Gambia Information, Communication and Infrastructure Minister Demba Ali Jawo answers questions on the Gunjur and Chinese factory pipe problem, the Gambia new vehicle policy, and the Hamadia TV lancing. For more, let's follow Ablaisi.
Honorable Demba Ali Jawo, Minister for Information and Communication Infrastructure. Welcome to the Checkpoint.
Thank you very much.
Now, we start with what happened in Gunjur. What is the situation concerning Golden Lead Company?
Yeah, what happened in Gunjur was that there is this Chinese company, the Golden Lead Company. It's a fish processing company. And some time ago, there was this talk about them polluting the beach in Gunjur, and both the government and the National Environment Agency were quite concerned about the situation, and they took up the matter, tried to find out what actually the situation is. They went even to the extent of taking some samples from, certain sites there, including a nearby borehole. Took those samples to Senegal, the Pasteur Institute in Senegal, to have them tested just to find out whether actually their products, the waste products from their factory is polluting the atmosphere. But fortunately, when the results came out, they were quite negative. They were found out not to be hazardous at all. So but certain people within the community of Gunjur decided to take the law into their own hands and decided to go and dig out the pipes of the company, which they are using actually to send the waste, empty the waste in the sea. But definitely the National Environment Agency found out that that was not hazardous at all. It was not toxic at all. So it was not an environmental hazard as some people were saying it to be.
So you mean the tests that were done in Senegal confirmed that it wasn't hazardous?
Exactly.
But is it okay to deposit waste into the sea?
Yes, if it is, as they said, actually some of that waste is even food for the fish.
But remember, this industrial waste.
Yes, industrial waste. I'm sure the National Environment Agency are experts in this area. If they say the waste is not hazardous, who are we to say no, it is?
But the people living in Gunjur complain that the odor is terrible.
Yeah,
anything that smells bad is probably bad.
I agree. Something that smells bad is maybe it's not welcome in any area. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it is only that company that produces bad odor. We know that Gunjur is a fish processing area. Even before the Chinese came, there had been fish processing going on there, and the odor was always there. Yeah.
But there was this legal case involving the NEA and the company that they should remove the pipes. Is that true?
Well, actually, what happened in this case was, when the Chinese company were putting those pipes in there, according to the NEA Act, they were supposed to do it in consultation with the NEA.
Was that done?
They went ahead. I understand they didn't get the permission of the NEA to do it. That was the reason why the NEA decided to take the matter to court to get them to regularize the situation. And that has already been done.
So did they remove the pipes?
No, the pipes...
When you say regularize the situation, in simple terms, what do you mean?
No, they had to negotiate, and the Chinese accepted, that they were wrong in doing that thing. And, the pipes are still there, actually. But, again, the pipes are not used at all. Because what the NEA did was that, when there was this talk about pollution and, hazardous waste and all those things, so the NEA asked the Chinese company not to use the pipes until they get the tests done. And then they took these samples and took them out. So, took them to Dakar and got them tested. But they found out that, it wasn't toxic at all. But at the moment, because also, some people went around and dug some of the pipes. So, the situation is the Chinese company is not even functioning right now. They are not working right now because of such a situation. The NEA asked them to stop until the tests are carried out. And now that the tests have been carried out, they are found not to be hazardous. But again, this situation arose when the pipes were not, carried on this stuff. So the Chinese company is appealing to the government to help them to restart their work because of this situation.
So it means the Chinese company complied with any regulations?
Yes, they did.
So the people of Gunjur, or some people were not happy with that, and they took the law into their own hands.
Well, and they misconstrued a lot of things, and probably thought that those pipes are actually being used to send in hazardous waste into the sea and all, which the tests confirmed were not the case.
Did the government know this was going to happen, that people would take the law into their own hands?
Well, I'm sure the government wouldn't know that. I mean, people who are ready to do such things sometimes, well, actually, it came as a surprise to the government that, people would go that far, even to, because, I mean, as far as we are concerned, this is like trespass, somebody's property, you just go and dig it. I think it was uncalled for, definitely.
And what is the government doing about it?
Well, as you know, the police is handling the matter. They called actually the leadership of that group, and they are investigating the case and they're handling it.
They are handling it?
Yes, they are.
Someone said the government should have been firmer, because this is putting us on a trajectory towards lawlessness. If people can just wake up one morning and go and dig somebody's property, what is your response?
Well, firmer in the sense that, okay, the police actually called these people for questioning. They are handling the matter. So I think the government wouldn't like to go further than that, probably, I mean, even ordering the arrest or detention of people. I think we haven't reached that level yet. Let's try this softly approach. Probably we'll get a solution to it.
Okay, we move to the Semalex contract. Where do we stand?
This Semlex contract actually existed since the former regime. There was a valid contract negotiated and signed with this Semlex company for the production of biometric ID cards, passports, etc., other national documents. But somewhere along the line, the former government decided to abruptly, terminate the contract. Which definitely was not done with due process. So these people actually threatened to take the government to court, for terminating a valid contract. So when this government came into power, we needed some to print some ID cards, because, as you know, it's been a long time now. The Gambia hasn't got new ID cards. So the alternative was that there is this contract. If we still do not respect the contract, it's very likely that these people will, take the government to court and get a lot of money out of us. So why can't we reinstate the contract? So what we found out that certain clauses of the contract were not quite in favor of, the government. So we thought probably...
Which parts were not in favor of the government?
An example I can give you is the sharing basis. I think it's a 5 or 6 year contract. I cannot remember the duration of the contract. But within that period, it's a BOT contract that is built, operate, and transfer. Eventually, they will transfer, the operation of the contract to the government. But before that happens, there was a kind of share basis. The proceeds from the contract would be on a share basis. In the initial original contract, it was a 70-30. That is, they would have 70%
to the company.
The government will have 30% of it. So when this government came and saw us, we probably thought that was not very favorable to the government. So let us renegotiate that clause and maybe a few other clauses and, a few other things as well. So that is what we are engaged in right now. Cabinet set up this task force. The task force was mandated to renegotiate certain clauses of the contract. And then, at the end of the day, after we have agreed with the Semlex company, then we can go ahead and start the production of ID cards.
So no agreement at the moment?
It hasn't. No, at the moment, no conclusion yet, because the government has made. There was a technical task force set up. The cabinet committee set up a technical task force of technical people who will look at it clause by clause and then make their recommendations. Now the government has looked at those recommendations, and we are satisfied with those recommendations that the technical committee has given us. Now we have passed it over to Semlex to also look at it and see whether it is okay with them before we sign. We proceed with the contract. It is already a signed contract. Yeah.
Okay. If I get it right, the main reason why the government didn't terminate the contract was fear of being embroiled in legal implications.
Well, that is one aspect of it.
Yeah, but is there no clause in the contract that says that either of the parties can decide to walk away, provided?
Yeah, that is provided.
Yes.
That is, you pay a huge amount of money. That is the clause. That is the clause of the contract. And the government thought probably, why would we walk away when we feel that, when we looked at the contract, we feel that these people have the capability to produce what we want.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk surrounding this Semelex contract, a lot of allegations of corruption, bribery, and other things. What is the real story?
Yeah, I agree. We are also concerned about a lot of rumors going around, or a lot of reports going around about Semelex being involved in fraud, blah, blah. And there are even reports that the Belgian authorities, they are based in Belgium, and the Belgian authorities actually raided, their offices, looking for whatever. But the thing is, all these are reports. Definitely, it hasn't given us the leeway to walk out of the contract just because somebody has reported about fraud or whatever. I think that is definitely enough reason for this government to walk out of the contract, because that is going to put us in legal trouble. So we probably thought that until such time that we get something substantive to hold on to that can make us to get out of the contract, then we have to go ahead.
Yeah. We come to another contract, the contract between the Ministry of Information and ESCAF concerning GRTS digital migration. How is that contract?
Yes, again, this contract has been existing since I think 2015 or 2014, I can't remember. But it was supposed to have been concluded since 2016, and yet at least 3 deadlines have passed, and they still cannot deliver the contract.
They refers to ESCAF.
ESCAF, we are talking about ESCAF, this Senegalese company. 3 deadlines have passed, and they still cannot deliver. So now the government has reached a point that we are going to invoke a particular clause of the contract, which says that if we are not satisfied with what is going on, we can give them at least 60 days notice to indicate to them that within their 60 days, if they cannot deliver, then we can get out of the contract. And that's the situation. We have already written to them, given them 60 days notice, and by mid-May, for instance, it would have been it would have definitely been over. The 60 days would have been over. Then we will have to go back to the Ministry of Justice, who are the legal advisors of the government, to advise us what next to do.
And what is this digital migration? Can we explain that in simple terms to people who don't know?
Digital migration, is quite a technical term, but to attempt to explain what it is, at the present time, the GRTS and in the Gambian televisions, for instance, we are operating on what is known as analog. It's a kind of broadcasting. As I say, these are all very technical terms. Probably I may not be able to simplify. But we want to. It's a requirement of the International Telecommunications Union, it's ITU, that the whole world is supposed to migrate now from analog broadcasting to digital broadcasting. Digital broadcasting is a more advanced form of broadcasting, and that
it's more advanced.
It is definitely more advanced, and that's.
But who is paying for this?
You mean
the migration? Is it is the ITU, that is the International Telecommunications Union, putting in anything?
Not necessarily. What actually happened is that in the case of this contract with ESCAF, they were actually supposed to finance it. They were supposed to pre-finance the thing, and then work for a number of years to recover their amount of their money before they eventually hand it over to the Gambia government. That was the agreement with ESCAF, and they have actually done quite a lot on that area. So that is why, at the end of the 60 days, if they cannot deliver, then we get back to the to the Ministry of Justice to give us an advice for us how we're going to go ahead. Because what are we going to do with the investment that they've already done on the ground?
GRTS, that is the Gambia Radio and Television Service, is a national broadcaster. Is it receiving direct subvention from the government?
Yes and no. Direct subvention, not necessarily from the government, but what actually happened is that the government has facilitated what is known as the GSM levy, which is actually being paid by the GSM operators, but being collected by the GRA, that is the Gambia Revenue Authority, to help the financing of the GRTS.
Is that enough?
Of course it's not enough. I can assure you that no institution in this country has enough of what, money they need to do their operation.
But is the government thinking of giving more support to GRTS?
Yes, if government has the means, I can assure you that the government is very much concerned about the situation in the GRTS, and they will really want to reposition the GRTS so that it can be able to compete with the new, dispensation that we are in. We are having private televisions coming up in this country. Already 2 private licenses have been issued, and the third one is almost on the offing as well. So and GRTS needs to be repositioned so that it can be able to compete with those ones and also act as an effective public service broadcaster. So the government would definitely do anything that is necessary to help the GRTS to stand on its own feet.
During the past 20 years, the government has always argued that GRTS should be independent economically. But they forgot. GRTS was not built as a profit-making corporation. It is built as a social service provider. What is your government take? Are you still maintaining that view that economically GRTS should be independent, should not receive anything from the state?
No. That is definitely not the view of this government. The government wants to reposition the GRTS, wants to turn it into a public service broadcaster. But as you say, it may not be in a position for a long time to come to actually finance itself fully. So the government will definitely do whatever it takes to help the GRTS to do its own.
It is not coming.
Yeah, probably the situation is not, the government, as you know, was very cash-strapped when we came into office. We found out that virtually all the coffers were empty, so we are trying to build on the economy right now. But definitely, we are thinking about these possibilities of what we can do to be able to finance institutions like the GRTS.
As Information Minister, do you know of any system or country where the public broadcaster is not directly subvented by the state? Like currently, the current situation that GRTS is in, it is not directly subvented by the state. Do you know of any other example in Africa or anywhere else?
No, I didn't look for any other example. Honestly, I don't know any other example. But it's all possible. It all depends on the situation of the country that it's operating. It's possible there are, public service broadcasters in Africa who have got the means to actually self-finance themselves. It's all possible. I'm not sure, definitely not.
We come to another very contentious issue, TV license for the Ahmadiyya community. Some people have said no, others have spoken in favor. Where does the government stand?
Well, that is the beauty of democracy. Any issue that comes in, there are people who are in for it and there are others who are against it. Well, at the moment, the application by the Ahmadis has not reached the ministry yet. It is still with the Public Utilities Regulatory Authorities, PURA, who are actually responsible for receiving applications from potential TV or radio or whatever, those who want to set up these institutions. So the application is with PURA. They are doing their due diligence and they're trying to see whether it merits being given the approval also. But after they are ready, then they will make recommendations to the ministry. And it is when it reaches the ministry that the ministry will also have its own say. But what happens in the case of PURA's assessment is that there is a stage in the assessment when they have to go back to the public. Usually they would use the newspapers, and other media to publicize the fact that this particular person or institution has applied to be allocated with a frequency, either radio or television, and then the people will, will have their say as to whether they feel that this particular individual or institution is entitled to have it or not. And then when they are making their recommendations, we'll put all that into consideration. We are probably at that stage at the moment. It definitely hasn't reached the ministry yet.
So for the moment, the government has no opinion on that?
No. Until PURA is ready, PURA is the one mandated to do the assessment. After they have made their recommendation, then the government will have its own opinion as to how we're going to go about it. It is only then that we can be in a position to have our say.
We call ourselves a secular democracy, and democracy by definition is very noisy. What is the criteria of giving this license to TV stations and radio stations? What do you look at?
Again, as I tell you, it is the PURA actually who do all these things. They do the assessment because they are the experts on that area. But well, as you know, the the situation in the Gambia is a new situation. We have never had this situation before. So the objective is to kind of free the airwaves so that there is freedom of expression in the country. And, giving television licenses, radio license, and, all other kind of media is part of that freedom that we want to enjoy in this country. I mean, Gambia virtually is the only country within the sub-region without private television stations. So we thought probably it's time that we also start allowing private television in this country.
Okay, we still stay with PIRA. There is this complaint that GSM networks in the Gambia are not the best and the charges are expensive, particularly cross network. Where is the government stand on that?
Yes, again, the problem with maybe the network of the GSM providers is that, we have what is known as the submarine cable, that is the Gambia submarine cable company, which is already in existence, I think, since 2013. It has brought in a lot of capacity into this country. But we can liken to a country with a very good airport. All kinds of planes come to the airport, but maybe the feeder roads, the roads from the airport to where the people are going to, are not in a good condition. You can come to the airport, but to reach your home would be another challenge. And that is the situation in the Gambia. The capacity of the submarine cable is quite great. It can take quite a lot of capacity. It's got a lot of capacity.
So is it that the GSM companies don't have the capability and capacity?
Well, that is the situation. Their infrastructure is definitely yet to match the capacity which is available at the cables. So definitely the infrastructure needs a lot of revamping in order to be able to, to get the quality service that people are looking for.
Good. Some doctors have been on strike for some weeks now. What is the situation?
Yes, the government has been very much concerned about the situation. Partially the strike has come to an end, but not completely to an end, because as far as I know, the doctors have still not gone fully back to the situation before they embarked on their strike. I understand they are just doing emergency services, but they have not gone fully back to work. And the government is very much concerned about it. So the negotiations are still continuing between the government and the striking doctors to come to an end.
2 weeks ago, we spoke to the head of the doctors on strike, and one of the conditions they laid was the Minister of Health has to resign if they are to end this thing. Are they still maintaining that?
I'm not sure whether the doctors are still maintaining that, but definitely the government is not prepared to budge on that area, because
that's a no-go area.
No, that is a no-go area. I can assure you that the minister resigning on this particular issue, I think it's going too far.
That's going too far.
Yeah.
And this is a personal one. The Ministry of Information is hosted by GRTS. When are you leaving?
Well, that's a very interesting question. We have nowhere to go at the moment. I know the GRTS needs the space that we are occupying, but we are definitely looking at the situation, and we are trying to look for a place, maybe our own place, where the ministry can build and move over, or like some other ministries, find a place where we can afford to rent, and because we know that this space definitely GRTS needs it very much, and we are very much concerned about that situation as well. We are doing all that is necessary to hand over the space eventually.
Oh, good. How is coordination between the different ministries?
Talking about coordination between ministries or not, of course the government is a bit concerned that we are yet to get to grasp with such a situation. Coordination, make it much smoother. We would like it to be much better than it is at present. There are a lot of gray areas, and we are trying to address them.
Earlier, the Minister of Finance introduced a vehicle control policy, which was expected to save the government millions of dollars. How is it going?
Yes, the issue, when it was actually discussed, approved, it was even in the budget, but at one time when cabinet met to discuss the issue, it was reported that there are some social implications, and both financial and social implications, and like, for example, an issue of drivers having to be retrained, you know, I mean, so because if you, the objective was, part of the policy was to, you know, kind of sell off some government vehicles, you know, and then you can imagine that a number of drivers would have to be, you know,
retrained,
gotten rid of. And, you know, I mean, there are a lot of social implications in that. So the government said, okay, I mean, the cabinet decided to set up a committee to look at the situation once again, you know, and then advise the government as to how to proceed. But definitely the vehicle policy will eventually be implemented, no doubt about that.
But for the moment,
well, at the moment, you know, I mean, maybe partially it's implemented, because I know, I mean, there were some vehicle allowances and other things which were part of the policy, the implementation. I think that is already being implemented, but certain aspects of it are definitely under suspension until the committee reports back.
Do you share the view that the government has too many vehicles?
Yes, it is possible, because, you know, in the former regime, you know, there were so many vehicles, particularly at State House, and the government has definitely taken a decision that, you know, I mean, most of those vehicles are going to be sold off, because the government cannot afford to maintain such a large fleet of vehicles. I mean, it is unnecessary and it's very expensive. So, I mean, a decision has been made. You go behind there in State House, so many vehicles are parked there. I mean, the government will never be able to use all those vehicles. That would be we just can't afford that. So the eventual thing is that, you know, they are making an inventory of all those vehicles, and then eventually they will be sold off.
I know this is not your area, but as the spokesperson for the government, you may have some piece of information about it. When will we have a reliable and efficient public transport system?
Yeah, I mean, it's an area which again is a concern to the government, because, I mean, you go to certain places like the place they call Westfield Junction, for instance. In the evening, when I go there, I see the number of people there waiting for transport. Honestly, I feel that something needs to be done about it, and the government is quite aware of the situation, and we are thinking about, because I can remember that recently I was with the Vice President on a tour. I mean, we went to Turkey to visit Turkey, and that was one of the subjects that actually we discussed with the Turkish government, how they can help us with, you know, I mean, public transportation system like buses and, you know, other kinds of public transport. You know, the government is definitely not sitting down just watching the situation. I mean, a lot is being done to try to address the situation.
Honorable Demba Ali Jawo, Minister for Information and Communication Infrastructure, thank you for being on the
Thank you very much. Thank you.